This episode of the Cut Podcast Network is sponsored by Better Fantasy. That's Bettor Fantasy. Better Fantasy is a new free-to-play app that lets you sync your fantasy football league and bet on the matchups. You can cash out for gift cards when your bets hit and even help raise money for charity along the way. It's a brand new company looking to grow their early adopter community. It's a slick app and it's incredibly fun to use. This was my first week using it and I cashed out on a couple of my bets. Pretty pumped about that. One of the reasons we love it is they also offer prop betting. So if you're in a state that hasn't legalized gambling yet, you can get in some prop bets on Better Fantasy. It's totally free to play. Download today for iPhone and Android. Use the code THECUT when you create your account to receive 1,000 Better credits when you start your account. Thank you to Better Fantasy.
Stay on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, man? You're muted, buddy.
Definitely muted. I literally did it for your ad read and forgot about it. But it's been a fun night. Classic Seattle game where we get a blocked extra point for 2 points here. But, I need a few things to happen here for Thrive mostly. Fantasy's pretty done for the day, but having fun.
I'm feeling good about my fantasy week. I won my typical just over 500, but it was in leagues that I definitely needed wins. So I'm tracking to make the playoffs in 80% of my leagues, which I did not expect after the first 4 weeks. So feeling pretty good.
Definitely an improvement from last year, but not by a lot. You were probably 70% last year.
Yeah, pretty close and playoff wise.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're here to talk through week 12 of the NFL. It was a crazy week. The Thanksgiving games, a couple of them made the list of things that we'll talk about. But I feel as though this week of games was a little, kind of disappointing, I guess. I don't know if it's maybe because the Browns just royally disappointed me last night, but
Probably.
that's pretty much how I feel. We'll also give you guys some waiver wire ads to look at as you head into week 13. We are getting down to crunch time, and it is almost time for the playoffs. The fantasy playoffs will start in a couple weeks now. It depends on your league. Obviously, the playoffs are going to start different weeks depending on the league. Now.
Most leagues, you have this week and next week of the regular season left.
Right. Which brings us to the first point, injury news. And so the main, I guess there are a lot of main stories today, but Christian McCaffrey was placed on the IR. He is done for the year. The injury was severe enough that they decided to put him back on the IR. He tweeted out or put on Instagram that he plans to come back bigger and stronger, which is probably a good idea after 2 injury-filled years. We'll talk through the fallout of that in a little bit. I mean, McCaffrey didn't play a whole lot anyway this last week because he got hurt in the game. So I guess my question, we're going to talk about one of the guys, but do you have any interest in Amir Abdullah moving forward?
No, not really. We've seen the blueprint with McCaffrey out, so
That's true.
I don't think we need to divide from there. Chuba was good in replacement, never spectacular, but good.
Yeah, I hear you there. All right, next big injury is Dalvin Cook. He has a torn labrum. The plan is to be out the next 2 weeks, and then hopefully he can come back the third week. So they don't plan to put him on IR. However, it's still on the table. The Vikings are currently
Yeah.
sitting in a playoff spot. I think that they will probably end up putting him on the IR if I had to speculate right now. How are you feeling about that situation, Randy?
I think if they do, it'd be this week. So obviously, you got initial. There's a good chance that Dalvin Cook and his agent want a second opinion. Most players usually do. Just to double check for. I mean, he's got a bright future still, so there's no need to. If he needs to sit out 3 or 4 weeks instead of 2, he should get that second opinion just to make sure. But yeah, I expect by the end of the week we would know if he goes on IR or not, because the Vikings also want that, because if they're planning on only having him out 2 weeks, if you know you're going to possibly have him out 3 weeks, you want to eliminate that option right now, just in case you get this game ticked off. If you wait till next week or something, that's what the Panthers did at times this year with McCaffrey, and it didn't work out. They just waited for 2 weeks and then put him on, just kind of screwed themselves there. But I expect this week. And I do expect – I don't think I expect the IR. I think he's going to be out 2 weeks, possibly 3, and then just not have him on the IR.
Here's the thing. We're seeing a quarterback play with a torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder, and this is also Dalvin Cook's non-dominant hand. I know he needs both arms to carry the football, however.
Usually a lot of running backs with a non-dominant hand is, what they stiff arm or truck with, or, because they're protecting the ball with their dominant hand.
Yeah, but I think if they had to run him out there on the 3rd week, I think they probably would. So,
but for fantasy, obviously we'll talk about Madison in a little bit because that's the obvious call there. But 2 weeks, so your best case for you is you can finish out getting the playoffs, or you already clinched the playoff spot, and he's just there to start the playoffs for you.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, that would definitely be best case.
Yeah.
Next guy on the list, we're going to skip around a little bit here, Randy, but Devos Samuel strained his groin. He's out 1 to 2 weeks. I would say probably 2 weeks with a groin injury, and the way that Debo plays. Really, really unfortunate because the 49ers were actually coming into their own as an offense. Brandon Ayuk has looked really good, but Debo has been a main cog in that machine. I wonder what this means for that offense. I mean, they were giving him carries. Like, he's, I believe, the first receiver in the modern era to have 3 rushing touchdowns in back-to-back games, or a rushing touchdown.
It 5 touchdowns in a season too.
Yeah,
Both
it's just. I mean, shout out to Jeff who wanted to get Debo running back eligibility in fantasy football. I think there's a good case for it after how they've used him. But what do you see as the fallout here?
Well, I would say a heavier usage on an RB2, a heavier reliance on Ayuk, obviously. And I mean, they kind of mixed in their mixed bag of receivers past those 2 anyways this last game. But I think the plan of attack is going to continue to be dominant run with Mitchell, Samuel Wilson, and possibly Sermon near the end, near fantasy playoffs.
Yeah. Which he did get hurt too. I don't know what the severity of his injury is. He got hurt on special teams. So I
saw that. I didn't see a report on it, so
neither did I. So,
but
hopefully,
even if he's fine, I think in this kind of new flesh for the 2 games without Debo, it would take at least a game before he would get that full split 50-50 workload with Mitchell, because they do love Wilson. So, but I would expect good things from Ayuk, who now will be used again more in that Devos Samuel role from this year, because that's kind of what he was used off and on paired with Debo last year. So,
yeah. And remember, guys, targets are earned. I wouldn't, go out and get Sherfield or Juwan Jennings, or I don't even know who the next option would be. Like, I wouldn't chase that. I would just say
I want to say Sanu.
I don't know who he plays for. I thought they cut him.
They probably did. The only thing we know is it's not Hurd. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all we.
Yeah, but I would say George Kittle's been disappointing for a couple of weeks this year. I don't think with Debo out, he's disappointing. I
No,
think he's
he had
gonna
a
get.
bad game this week, but since he's been back, he's been solid.
Yeah.
Maybe not like the tight end one every week, but he's been easily a tight end one most weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
And that should continue.
Yeah. All right, next guy, kind of fantasy relevant, but Dan Arnold, grade 2 MCL sprain. He's out 4 to 6 weeks, which means he's probably done for the year. It means he's definitely done for the year because they're not going to risk bringing him back. Really kind of sucks, you know. We talked about it last week or the week before. He's the only reliable pass catching option on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tavon Austin caught a touchdown this week, and now what is Trevor Lawrence gonna do?
Listen, man, you're gonna have to tweet about it again. Is it now? Finally, the LaVisca show when everyone has died around him. He literally has Marvin Jones and Tavon Austin, the only people around him at this point.
It's rough,
literally,
man.
The two people that have taken over for this team, and Agnew and Dan Arnold, are gone. Done for the season. So at some point, he has to at least get you 10 points a week at some point here. Maybe it takes Marvin Jones being out for 2 weeks, but Jesus.
Here's the thing. So the fantasy workload breakdown from the wide receiver room this week went Tavon Austin, 2 receptions, 21 yards, and a touchdown, 10 fantasy points. Laquan Treadwell, 8 targets, first of all, 4 receptions, 53 yards, 9 fantasy points. That's a guy we probably should talk about on the waiver wire because 8 targets is kind of significant. Then Marvin Jones, 4 receptions, 43 yards, and then Laviska Shenault, 5 receptions, 33 yards. I guess they were tied in that aspect. So
that's
crazy,
just, but
yeah. All we've learned this year.
He broke out, I would say, this year.
Yeah.
And I think he's their tight end of at least the near future. I don't think they draft another one. But seeing as what they did this year with running back, maybe they will.
Yep.
In the first round, too. Let's just fuck it all up.
To be fair, they need a tight end 2 and tight end 3.
They do, but tight end 2s and tight end 3s are left out in the street every single day. You don't need to draft one in the first round to compete with your already star guy. But we've seen that already, so...
Yeah. So it sucks for Dan Arnold, but I fully expect him to be a mainstay in this offense next year. Moving on, non-fantasy, but very much so fantasy. Jack Conklin tore his patella tendon in the Browns Sunday Night Football loss to the Ravens. He is out for the year. It was his second drive back after dislocating his elbow. Just really sucks for Jack Conklin, but it also sucks for the Browns running game, and it also sucks for the Browns pass catchers. But if you're playing them, outside of maybe Jarvis, you shouldn't be, no matter who it is.
I think I don't think it hasn't really impeded the running game. When there's been multiple starters out in the line, it has slowed down, but Conklin's been in and out all year. Same with Will. So we've been without a tackle here and there, or both. And the running game still worked, at least mostly. Hudson was out as well this last week. So even though he hasn't been spectacular so far in his rookie campaign, which I didn't really expect, and neither did you, I think continued growth from the 2 depth guys will help out and help them out for the future. However, what do we... I don't really... Okay.
All right.
Well,
sorry guys if you're watching on YouTube.
Weird. Either way, I think it's more for Baker's sake and the pass game's sake. If there's going up against the Steelers or Ravens again, when there's lots of blitzes coming, 2 stud rushers coming at you, maybe taper the expectations there.
Yeah.
Even if they're not high.
The good thing for the Browns, and I think we'll talk about them eventually in this show. I hope not for long. But the good thing is that they get the Ravens again after their bye week this week. So we're going to find out exactly what that means because the Ravens just feasted on that offensive line once Conklin went down, unfortunately. So, all right, let's get to the highlights. And we are going to start with a good football team, a very good football team, a team I tweeted out, if the playoffs started today, I think they would make the Super Bowl, and that is the New England Patriots. The question here, are the Patriots elite? And the reason I asked that, so I was browsing PFF grades today, and Mac Jones at surface value had a very good statistical game. He had over 300 yards. His average depth of target was pretty good. He made a couple of throws downfield. I was shocked, absolutely shocked to see that he was their worst graded offensive player. Now, it didn't matter in this game. The Patriots blew out the Titans. Their defense was dominant. Do you think that the Patriots should be the favorite coming out of the AFC despite, I guess I don't want to call it Mac's deficiencies because I will get dragged on Twitter, but the limitations that Mac still has as a rookie quarterback?
I mean, I think right now you have to say they're the favorite, and it's literally because of the defense. Let's just play it simple. Because even like this game, the running game wasn't great, passing game wasn't great, but they just still dominated. And obviously, for Titans side, everybody of value out besides Tannehill is gonna cause problems against a good defense. So there wasn't much there. Mac Jones has deficiencies. Every rookie does. There's no there shouldn't be a question there.
Yeah.
Even if he's playing well, which he is, and we both agree on that. We don't take stuff away. We just also point out the obvious.
Yeah. Well, and for what it's worth, I think I saw a big Twitter account in the fantasy community tweet out Mac's throw downfield to I believe Nelson Aguilar. I don't recall who the receiver was. It might have been Jacoby Myers, but either way, said, "Wow, not too bad for Mr. Dink and Dunk." Well, here's the thing: it was a terrible throw, and the safety just overran it. The one throw that safety pretty much it was underthrown. The safety kind of went as if it was going to be thrown correctly, and then it was a completion, and it was good for Mac. Still question the deep ball, and I question what's going to happen when teams actually stack box. They're stacking boxes now, and that offensive line is playing well. But what happens when you get a stud defensive front, a stud front seven in general, and then add in put 9 in the box and see if Matt can beat you throwing deep. I don't know if he can. That's where I get a little nervous betting on the Patriots. But again, their defense is so good, man. It's tough not to bet on them.
Well, and the Ravens are going to come with the same game plan they just had against the Browns, and we'll have against the Browns in 2 weeks, where it's just basically they're playing a bare front, and they know their corners can hang at least for a few seconds, and
that's all
I hope
need.
you don't get beat. And I think, there's not like this just destroying speed on the Patriots, and even if there was, Mac has to hit them within 30 or 40 yards in that tight window to really maximize the play, I would say, because otherwise they're gonna have to slow down, and those are always the maximal plays anyways. So it's gonna be tough for teams like that. I don't necessarily, maybe with Chris Jones back to his normal positions, the Chiefs can have some concerns against the running game for the Patriots. Bills, they've been beat here and there. If it's Patriots Browns again, they'll probably be able to run over the Browns, unfortunately. Yeah. Same with Raiders, same with Chargers. There's few teams that can play defense against the run game, but the AFC isn't this stalwart against the run, whereas teams like the Bucs, if they made it to the Super Bowl in the ultimate storyline, they could shut down the run, which they did against them, pretty much. Just Mac dink and dunked the whole game. And it was a good game.
Yeah. That's I'm rooting for the Bill versus Brady Super Bowl now. I want to see this Patriots team in the Super Bowl again, which I don't think I've ever said in my entire life. So shout out to Mac Jones for doing that, I guess. All right. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills as a highlight because they were pretty freaking incredible against the Saints the other night. It started a little slow. Josh Allen had a few picks, but the Bills did what the Bills do. And what the Bills do is they just throw it down your throats. They don't run it down your throats. They throw it down your throats. And when Josh Allen is firing, it's hard to stop. I mean, New Orleans is a very, very good defense, and the Bills hung 31 on them. And I know it was Trevor Siemian, but they also held the Saints to 6 points. That is significant. I think that right now we're looking at the Bills versus the Patriots as the top two teams in the AFC. I'm still not sold on the Chiefs. I know they're kind of back, but and it's easy to forget them when they're coming off their bye. But do you see it as the same way now that the Bills are kind of hitting their stride?
Yeah, I think those are the two. I think I would still give Ravens the best team overall because they're still playing good defense. And their offense most weeks just looked really, really good. They just looked really bad this week. But they made turnovers, basically. Their offense moved really well. I think they can always move really well, especially the running game. So I'd still give it to the Ravens playing the most complete football. And until this week with their quarterback playing the best as well, like that combo, or we don't get for the Patriots every week.
Yeah, that's fair. I do want to mention before we stop talking about the Bills, Dawson Knox missed 2 games, and he is the tight end 7 in PPR leagues. This last week, 3 catches, 32 yards, but he did add 2 touchdowns. I don't know if that says more about the tight end landscape or the fact that Dawson Knox has been really, really good this year as like the second-ish, third-ish option for Josh Allen.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, sounds about right. All right, next on the docket, we have touchdown Lenny. So Leonard Fournette is the RB1 this week. He went off. He had 4 touchdowns in this game, I believe 3 on the ground and 1 through the air. If Leonard Fournette does not play in this football game, the Bucs definitely lose. His final stat line was 17 attempts, 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8 targets, 7 catches, only 31 yards, but he did add a touchdown. The Bucs offense is the worst to project. I would have never guessed that Leonard Fournette would do that against the Colts. Now, I know that the Colts are a too high defense. We could have kind of seen it coming, but that's when Bruce Arians would say, "Hey, Rojo, you want in there?" And Rojo got a touchdown too.
I know, right?
Do you see the Bucs as just you have to look at what the other teams are doing in order to project them moving forward? Yeah. Or do you think there's still some consistency there? So, like, I believe Godwin had an awful game. So,
I think there's still some consistency, but the spread of the ball in the passing game is only going to get worse because Antonio Brown's going to be back soon, so it's only going to get worse. I think you just have to play matchups there. Obviously, we saw the Colts do well against the Bills because they had to stop the pass, which they could do, but they normally aren't very good against the run, but the Bills can't run. So we knew the Bucs can with their mixed bag of weapons there and whoever they feel like using that day, it feels like. But I would always dictate the matchup, and then kind of the only consistent receiving option I'd feel fully comfortable starting, I think, is going to be Gronk from here on out. I don't think he necessarily has like this many catches every game, but he has this huge touchdown upside, so he doesn't need 7 catches. He can do it with 2.
It's very true. I mean, you're still going to start Godwin and Evans, and you're just going to pray most weeks. If you're in shallow leagues, then I'm sure you have other options, but that's why you check out our rankings on thecuttffb.com/rankings. I don't know that I updated those this week, so I'm sorry. It was a crazy weekend.
It's Thanksgiving, bro.
I know.
Travel, all that.
It was a crazy weekend. So the main point I wanted to make here is that understanding what coverages defenses play, pretty important even for fantasy. So I guess in retrospect, we could have seen something like this coming because we know that the Colts run too high, which is really easy to run against, especially when you have the Bucs offensive line, who's pretty good too. All right, let's talk about the Packers because the Packers were very, very impressive in their win against the Rams. They won 36-28. Aaron Rodgers, 28 of 45, 307 and 2. He also rushed in a touchdown. A.J. Dillon got the bulk of the work in this game. He saw 20 carries, 69 yards, also 5 receptions for 21 yards, and added a score. Aaron Jones obviously was still a little banged up, worked his way back. The Packers are going on bye, so it was kind of shocking that Aaron Jones even played, but he was pretty ineffective, so they kind of took him out and let Dillon run the show. The Packers are kind of rounding into form as well. There are teams that I think struggled with their identity earlier in the year, and Green Bay hit that, and they haven't really looked back. They're 9-3 at this point. Randall Cobb looks like an actual fantasy relevant pass catching option moving forward. How are you feeling about the Packers? Do you think this is sustainable? Do you think the Rams are kind of in a rut?
I think the Rams are kind of in a rut, and I think it all stems around Robert Woods going down. This offense is running very smoothly, no one demanding targets, everyone just getting open. And I don't think, I mean, to some point, Odell is demanding targets because that's clearly why he left Cleveland and why he's a Ram. But it's not like he's on the sideline in Stafford's face. Why do I have 10 targets, not 15? Like he's getting the ball, but they need to retool their offense around a new kind of weapon and a weapon that does kind of cut in to what Van Jefferson does. And he finally had a good game again. Cup was slow in the first half. It looked like they were just trying to get the ball elsewhere, use him late. They need to continue to hit him. Henderson got banged up in this game as well. So they need basically all health, but I think in the next couple weeks they'll get back into form. Whereas the Packers, I think, are just finally getting into it. They finally got a second receiving option in Tunyon, and then he got hurt a week later, and now they kind of have a combo one with, I would say, Lazard and Cobb taking kind of turns and splitting that role, with MVS being just a pure deep shot guy. So once Aaron Jones is fully healthy, they have a pure split backfield. I think they're going to be full of cylinders, and this is top 5 in the NFC. Is ridiculous.
It is. I'm still feeling good about my Packers Super Bowl prediction. I think.
Well, you forgot one thing, Sarah.
I
That
know.
means that it's the playoffs.
This is a different form of Aaron Rodgers, though.
Is it?
That's
because the only Aaron Rodgers that's won a Super Bowl had a top defense.
Listen, the Packers have a really good defense right now. I know the Rams kind of put it on
not a top
them.
defense. Not a top defense.
They have like a top half of the league defense, maybe.
Well,
I don't know where they rank.
Let's see if Rodgers can win with that. He hasn't shown it.
That's true. All right. The last highlight before we get into the sad stuff: Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Monster is what I would like to call him. Elijah Mitchell. The reason we're calling him, yeah, it's awful. I was tired. So Elijah Mitchell, with a pin in his hand that he carries the football with, 27 carries, 133 yards, and a touchdown. He also saw 6 targets, caught 5 balls for 35 yards. Just a dominant performance. My question, is Elijah Mitchell a dynasty RB1 in this 49ers offense?
No.
Okay.
I mean, he's played well. Doesn't have the highest draft capital of this running back room from this year. This running back room has always kind of been hit or miss, depending on the year. I really don't know what they're going to do with Wilson and Mostert for the future. Both have played well for him at different stretches. But, I mean, for me, the future is going to be a pure split between Mitchell and Sermon, who both, in my opinion, will deserve it by that point next year. And I think both are going to be fantasy relevant. I think both will be plays every week. But because of that, unless one is handed more touchdowns on the week, neither will be an RB1.
So all of that, yes, I fully agree. Also, Trey Lance is going to poach some touchdowns. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
what's going to happen because Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be there next year. I think that's pretty clear.
I think so too. Is he? I was going to say, is he under contract next year? I don't really know.
He still is going to make like $27 million next year. However, I don't see Kyle Shanahan going up, getting his quarterback, and then taking the Jordan Love route, because Jimmy Garoppolo is not Aaron Rodgers. And so
No.
maybe they do, maybe Jimmy G's there, but I would fully expect Trey Lance to take over this offense next year. And that would be why you should. I think Elijah Mitchell is an RB2 in Dynasty, and I think you should be trading for him because I don't think people are there yet. However, I'd still temper.
I would wait because, because for me, like I think right now he's clearly shown he's going to be the lead horse of the stable for at least the immediate future. And he's shown the ability to take massive carry games where some of the other guys have not. Honestly, pretty much just him and Sermon are the only ones I would trust with getting 20 plus carries a game. So, which is why they're going to be great together for the future. But I would wait because that future exists, and it's only going to get more apparent in the offseason when people really start to break down this roster and understand, hey, there's 4 or 5 backs on here. There's 2 that just got drafted last year. One's looked good. I think Sermon has looked okay when he's played. Nothing close to the Ohio State run yet. But I think that the price will get cheaper than it would right now if you still have trades available in your league, or maybe the immediate offseason when you have that pure recency bias behind it.
Yeah. What I would do, if I'm being completely upfront, is I would go into my rookie draft next year and I would say, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about sending a second for Elijah Mitchell. And I think some people will bite on that because people get excited about rookies.
Probably. But again, they're always more valuable close to the draft.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. For sure. All right. Let's get to the lowlights. The first one I want to talk about, and I feel kind of bad talking about it. So I'm sorry, Lions fans. The Lions should have won the football game. They should have gotten their first win. Their late game management was absolutely atrocious. So they called a timeout because I either had 10 men on the field or there was a miscommunication. After calling a timeout to stop the clock, this made a 3rd and I believe 8 into a 3rd and 3. The Bears converted, they kneed out the clock, and they kicked the field goal to get the win. Had they not done that, the Bears may have kicked a minute earlier, and there's a chance that the Lions go down and score, or at least get a field goal. It's a slim chance, but the reason I want to bring this up, I think Dan Campbell has done a really good job in getting those guys to play really hard. I also think that in-game management is going to be an issue moving forward, and so he's kind of like the Sashi Brown per se, but at the head coaching level, where he's hired as a middleman to get them through some tough years, and then he's going to get fired in 3 years anyway. And I would be shocked if he lasted 3 years. And it sucks. I think he's going to be a coordinator somewhere, but man, the Lions they find ways to lose, man. It's tough to watch.
Yeah. We all have known for a while that he's not going to be the future of this organization. It's not his fault. I don't think he's particularly the best in-game coach. I don't think he has that capability, at least yet. But it sucks for him because you're just in such a bad spot. You're in a pure rebuild. In a rebuild, you got it, and your draft was not part of the rebuild. It's next year is where the rebuild actually starts. So it really just sucked for him. And I think they did well in the draft. I think it was a good starting point, but he's never going to see the success of this team, and that really sucks. He's one of those guys that I really like. He's that position coach or special teams coach that teams just absolutely need. That's where he will thrive. He's going to keep having jobs because he's that kind of guy. It sucks for him. He gets one chance, and it's this.
Yeah, it's tough. I hope 10 years down the line, he gets another shot at a head coaching job. But you can't be doing that, Dan Campbell. And he got bailed out on another one, I think, where he tried taking a timeout and they didn't let him because the Bears are stupid enough to take a timeout too. Shout out Matt Nagy. Andy Dalton was a highlight in this game. He played really well against the Lions. So I don't know. I miss Justin Fields. I can't wait to watch Justin Fields. All right, that's enough Lions. Steelers. Any thoughts on how bad the Steelers were?
In particular, no.
Yeah.
We know they need to be able to run the ball to be an effective offense. And they couldn't do that or really work in the passing game in the first half. The passing game kind of came on late, and thankfully it helped me win Money and Thrive with Deontay. But it's just one of those, like, they couldn't run the ball, so Najee was bad, and you just kept adding on. It's like nothing's working, and here we are. And they're on the outside looking in for playoffs. Believe bottom of division, or is that Browns right now?
Browns. I think the Browns, yeah. Or no,
Browns are 6-6. So
yeah, so they're still ahead of the Steelers.
Okay, so because of the tie. Okay, well, it's bad. Like, this is definitely the last hurrah for Big Ben. I think everyone knows that, and hopefully including him and the Steelers organization. But it was a really bad week. I don't think this is the status quo for them going forward or anything. I know it's been a couple of bad weeks in a row here, but we've seen their offense work. I think it will continue, and the defense is good, obviously. So,
yeah, Pittsburgh gets they get Baltimore this week though.
Yeah.
So that's
and TJ Watt's on the COVID list right now.
Yeah, that is very true, and that might put a couple more people on the COVID list as well. So, all right, next, I reused the graphic from last week. He's not back.
Or some would say he is back.
Yeah, that's true. So my Cam Newton take, right? Everyone's telling me I'm dumb because I made a take that I think Cam is still better than Mac Jones. And here's the thing, guys. The Miami defense is really, really good. And I'm not going to excuse how bad Cam Newton was because he was bad. He was bad. That offensive line was atrocious. Like prime Cam offensive lines looked like this, and that's what got Cam killed. Cam could not work with that because he isn't as fast as he used to be. He did get older. However, one game does not make a player. It does not break a player, and people need to stop saying that it does. I think that's a pretty wild thing. I think Cam still has it, and I think that if Cam were given, a full off season to maybe learn the playbook, that might help. But he's had 2 weeks, and I'm joking here when I'm saying he's not back because I do think that Cam's going to find success. I think he's going to have QB1 weeks in fantasy. What do you make of this game? It was just bad.
I think people are quickly forgetting how much this Dolphins defense pretty much stifled the Ravens attack a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And they're finally getting back to full strength. So it's just another tick on the Miami defense. I think they just looked incredible of late. Tua's been so efficient and has looked really good. So I think it was just a bad match. McCaffrey got hurt. Nothing really just worked. And it was a bad game. He had like 15% completion percent. It felt like 2 picks. Like, it was just terrible. There's no question there, but I think that's nowhere near the norm for Cam that we're going to get. I think anyone that stashed him on their teams is going to be happy. I think last week is more close to what we're going to get every week.
Yeah, I agree. The Panthers this week get a bye week. Am I correct? Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah, because
there's a good
Rule
amount
had
to
to
buy this week, right?
Yeah,
Is it
Rule had
4 now?
to reinforce. Yeah, 4 more teams. Rule had to reinforce that Cam's the starter. PJ Walker looked pretty bad too, guys. I mean, he looked better than Cam, but yeah, that's what happens when you know the offense. That's a good thing to do.
It's like he knew. No. Yeah, and just because Cam's back with the Panthers, people forget new coach, new scheme, new system. Same Cam, slower Cam. So
Yeah, for sure. All right. One of the last ones here, Jalen Rager's hands were a low light.
I mean,
Um,
I still
I,
think there's a chance at a future for Rager. Like it's not like J Jaw where we know it's over. There's maybe in 3 years he does something and we're like, oh, remember he was terrible. Good thing he
yeah,
had that one touchdown this season. But Rager, he still has a chance. It's just he hasn't progressed since college. Uh,
I'd argue he's
he
gotten worse.
he's got a better quarterback than he did in college, which is easy to say, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was tough for him.
But I mean, it's not like he's gonna get 20 targets a game or anything. He's clearly wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, really, if you added the tight end position. I think he's gonna have still a decent career. I don't think they're giving up on him, but this is just a terrible. It's like the example everyone's going to continue to bring up, just like they did forever with Aguilar, with drops. That's all they wanted to talk about, and maybe that's his future. Maybe he ends up like Aguilar, where he has to go somewhere new with a quarterback that can actually hit him, and it works out.
Here's the thing. I think Aguilar, that would be great for him. That's a great outcome. And if you have
Yeah,
him in
but
fantasy and dynasty, I think you're happy with an Aguilar outcome with what we've seen so far.
I think you are too. But that's the thing, though. Like Aguilar, we were done with. We didn't care. No one cared.
That's true.
I don't think we're there with Rager.
Yeah, and the opportunity cost is gonna. I mean, I know Justin Jefferson was still going ahead of Jalen Rager in fantasy drafts too, but it sucks for Eagles fans, and it really sucks for those who decided to draft Rager over Jefferson because the NFL did. That's why you should follow the cut. We did have Jefferson over Rager, even though Randy liked Rager a little more than I did, which
Yeah,
which is still okay. A lot of
I
people are
expect
saying.
improvement from players. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are saying, oh, man, I missed big on Rager. I mean, did
If
we
you
really expect him to get slower and worse? Like, no. I mean, you have to project
no,
forward. So
you expect
it's
an increase in the route tree. He was a really good jump ball receiver in college. He's got that burner speed. You knew the thought process is he goes to a team where he's a wide receiver 1, which he was, and then he grows his route tree, and he continues to get better with his hands because he did have some drop issues in college as well, and add to his frame. And he's kind of done nothing, and that's really the issue.
yeah, it's tough. All right. And then the last thing, let's just the Browns and the Ravens deserve to be on the low lights, but I wanted to highlight what the Browns were able to do to Lamar. So they picked off Lamar 4 times. 3 of them were definitely Lamar's fault. One was like a fluky John Johnson pick. But Lamar looked bad in this game, and I know he's going to get a pass because the Ravens did win this game. It's like the second time in 43 years or something that a quarterback has thrown 4 interceptions and their team has won. Lamar could not see the field. He physically could not see the linebackers and the safeties sitting in the middle. It's been a problem in the past. It's actually been a problem quite a bit this year too. He's just gotten away with a lot.
Yeah, they won with his legs. I mean, plain simple.
Yeah. And Lamar's always going to be able to do that. He's always going to be able to evade sacks. He's always going to be able to extend plays, and that's how they won this football game. However, if there's a team now, I say if there's a team that can, mitigate that a little bit, the Browns were that team. They just still couldn't get to him. Like they had guys free rushing and getting to him in the backfield, and it didn't matter. So it's just a tough passing game for Lamar, though.
Yeah, it is. He's gonna have that, and I would say like Andrews had still a decent day. Hollywood Brown had a pretty decent day. Bateman was okay. So even the turnovers are an issue, but he still had a pretty good day throwing. He had, I believe 20 completions, 24 if you count the picks. So, I mean, that's normally what you want from Lamar. You just don't want the turnovers, and you probably want another touchdown through the air. But the run game was dominant, which is what they are, and it worked out. I mean, honestly, we know if the Browns can't run the ball, they don't have explosive options, especially with Schwartz not there. I mean, he's really the only one that can really get deep, and he doesn't have the best hands yet because, he's a track star trying to play wide receiver, which I think he has improvement in his future, but that type of receiver has not always worked out. So, especially early on in the career. And, if you're stopping the run like that, this is what you're going to get. That's plain and simple.
Yeah. I shout out to the football team for winning this football game, by the way. They got lucky. Yeah. Just really quickly on the Browns, because I voiced some of my thoughts on what the Browns are. You've got Cleveland media, you've got national media that are putting loss on Baker Mayfield. Baker didn't play out of his mind by any means. The Browns wide receivers and overall pass catching options outside of David Njoku are atrocious. And Jarvis Landry did okay in this game, but it was schemed open. I think he got open by himself once, and then he kind of sat in zones. If you man up against the Browns, they are not going to have an open guy, and it's going to look a lot like that. The Browns are toast to me. I don't think that the Browns are going to make the playoffs. I think there will be a time where we start to question Kevin Stefanski, and I think it's coming soon. I think it already started, but I'm not quite there yet. Just an embarrassing showing from the Browns. It sucked to be a Browns fan again last night, and probably will even on the bye week somehow. It's not going to be fun. So,
unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. That will do it for the Week 12 fallout. I'm sorry if we didn't talk about your team. There are a few games that it wasn't a fun game, and I didn't want us to talk about it. So let us know, though, if you're upset about that. We'll make sure we include them next week. But before we get out of here, we have to talk through the waiver wire wish list. The waiver wire wish list is actually full of good players this week for the first time in a while. So the first guy that we're going to talk about is obviously Alexander Mattison. So 55% rostered. There's a real good shot that he is not on your waiver wire. However, with the Dalvin Cook news, there was a thread out there. I think it was Alex Caruso on Twitter. He said, here's why Alexander Mattison is the waiver wire priority running back over Chuba Hubbard, who we'll talk about in a second. Yeah, Alexander Mattison is the number one priority, I think. I think this could be another league-winning opportunity. Randy, do you agree with that assessment?
I don't know about league winning, just because of the length of being out for Cook. I think you have probably 3 weeks of Madison being the guy and the lead guy, because I think first week back for Cook, he's a little bit on a pitch count just to make sure he's good, which makes sense. So I think for 2 weeks, I think he seals your spot and maybe seals your seed in the playoffs.
Okay. So the main argument, so they get the Lions in week 13. They get the Steelers the following week. So not a great matchup by any means, but Joe Mixon also just torched the Steelers run defense, and who knows how long TJ Watt will be out. Hopefully not that long. But then in week 15, he gets the Minnesota Vikings, who you can run against the Vikings. Or he gets the Chicago Bears. I'm stupid. You can run against the Bears. So, I'm all the way in on Madison. I would spend all the fab that I have left, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I think so too.
Cool. Next guy, I skipped the next one on the list, Randy. We'll come back to him. Chuba Hubbard. So we talked about this with Christian McCaffrey going down for the season. Chuba Hubbard is the starter for the rest of the year. He's 49% rostered, so there's a better chance that he is available in your leagues. If you don't have Madison available in your leagues, Chuba Hubbard is the top option. These two guys are priorities. They need to be rostered. They probably need to be started. I don't have much else to say on that. Do you, Randy?
No, I think Chuba's more of a league winner, quote unquote, for the week than Madison, just because we know McCaffrey's out. I believe, did they close the door completely on the playoffs too for him?
They did, yeah. Because
I'm
I
just
think
more curious. That doesn't really affect fantasy, but I'm just more curious.
I believe so, yeah. I think they shut him down.
So for me, it's just one of those things where he hasn't been tremendous, but he's going to get 15 to 20 touches, and that's at worst your flex every week.
Yep. Yeah, I had a lot of success starting Chuba for the weeks that CMC was out. So.
And that was with Darnold playing atrocious, too. It wasn't even the good Darnold.
Yeah, very true. All right, next guy, Jamal Williams, 37% rostered. I wanted to put him on this list next because I think he's more available. And Dan Campbell has basically confirmed that DeAndre Swift will be out this week. Jamal Williams is a start. He obviously has gotten less work with DeAndre Swift becoming the focal point of their offense, but if Swift is out, I think that just transfers straight over to Jamal, maybe with a slight downtick in opportunities, but Jamar Jefferson is probably a shout here because he has gotten some run, and then they have the third back, the 27 or 28-year-old guy that everyone was freaking out about in Dynasty. Don't pick that guy up.
But Williams is the full 3-down back for this team now for at least a week. I would expect more like 2 weeks because, again, this is a winless team. The only thing they have to play for is to literally win a game.
Yeah.
And if he's completely out this week, which is the Vikings, which you can run on, it's not like the greatest matchup, but you can still run on them. The week after that's the Broncos. Kind of worse to run on, but still not terrible. And you know he's got to roll the rest of the year. So I think he at least gets you flex-worthy points over the next 2 weeks. I would expect with Swift out, going against playoff caliber teams, I don't really think they rush him back.
No, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't. Yeah, I mean he's the future. Jamal is also the future of the team. They're the pair there for the next 2 years after this, I believe, and I think that will continue because Jamal's very, very good. But I think he was a high value handcuff for a reason. Like Swift hasn't gotten it done necessarily on the ground this season, but he's gotten it done through the air. Williams has kind of done a bit of both. I know Swift did it lately on the ground, but now when you know he's going to get at least 80% of the work, because they are going to sprinkle in everyone else, especially in power game. I think they'll give him a breather in that scenario, but you know they're going to use him, especially in the red zone, because he's versatile, which they love to use in the red zone if they ever get there. So I think Williams is one of the better pickups. Same thing as Madison, though, where the top end value decreases. He has more long-term value than Madison, though.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, a couple other guys that Randy wanted to put on here. Taysom Hill.
Literally the only people that matter.
Yeah, it's true. Waivers at this point, guys, it's kind of tough. But Taysom Hill, 12% rostered right now, and Taysom Hill has been named the starter for this week. He's practicing with the expectation that he will start this week.
It came out today at like 2 p.m. that they were gearing for the remainder of the season for him to be the starter. So, I honestly, I think Simeon's been okay for what he should be. I don't think he's played that bad, but we know what Taysom does. They won't necessarily win games, but they will control the ball. Kamara will be back for the next game. So that's what all accounts are saying. Ingram probably also back, but even if he's not, him and Kamara with Taysom is a good it's good for this team, especially when you, without Michael Thomas, without Troutman, you basically have a hodgepodge of weapons, none of which are truly going to break out. But they are going to have a better chance to break out if the box has to be stacked. And I think they understand with that limited weapons that both Ingram and Kamara will still have to be used in the passing game, unlike the first kind of couple games with Taysom last year, where they just were like, wow, we have everyone else. It's fine. No, they can't do that. That's not how this works. And even with that, we saw Kamara do well with that at different times. I hope they play on Christmas for my fantasy
Big
sakes,
facts.
as long as because he's on most of my dynasty rosters too have Kamara.
Yeah.
So I hope I get that again.
Yeah, that game was crazy. But yeah, Taysom's going to be a QB1.
He's going to be he'll be a top 16 quarterback the remainder of the year.
Yeah.
Every week. Most likely quarterback one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Probably back end QB1 just because I do think the touchdown upside is still a little limited with their limited pass catchers. But against teams that they can run the ball and Taysom can succeed, I think that he'll be fine. So
who do they play this week?
The Dallas Cowboys on Thursday Night Football.
There's a chance. Now, hear me out.
Yeah.
Kamara and or Ingram have to be back. But there's a chance he's my start of the week Thursday.
All right.
There's a chance.
Spoiler
alert. Cowboys get run on. So
they do. And then the last guy that we need to talk about is Dontrell Hillyard, who is rostered at 46%. Some people were on this last week. I still think it was a bad play because without a 64-yard touchdown, we're having a very different conversation about why the Titans' backfield is just untouchable. His final stat line,
he had like 100 yards and a half, basically.
He did. So take away the 64-yarder. He has, say, 11 carries for 64 yards, no touchdown, 1 reception, 2 yards, and a fumble. So I get a little nervous because if I think that he's going to break a 60-yard run every week, sure, yeah, we can start him. I think it was a little fluky in the first place doing that against the Patriots. And I don't know, man. I think I reverse jinxed it too, where I allowed that to happen.
Counter argument being with the injuries in play. I believe, what do we got left for Julio? I think it's 1 more week guaranteed on IR. If not 2. We have 2 more weeks guaranteed for AJ Brown. I would say at least 2 more weeks guaranteed for Derrick Henry, if not the rest of the year.
Probably.
So I would assume at least till playoffs Henry's out, but you never know with freak athletes, and he's just a freak all around. So I think for the next 2 weeks at worst, he has the best touchdown upside for this team, if not the second best at worst. And he's going to get most of the work. They cut Peterson. McNichols has been nothing. So he's going to get work. Plain and simple.
That's true. I get it. I would roster him. I would not be comfortable starting him most weeks.
I think he's probably going to be close. He's going to be back end RB2 for me probably the rest of the season.
Okay. That's
most weeks at least. I mean, matchup depending.
Yeah. All right. That'll do it for the waiver wire wish list because waivers are slim. I'm sure there are some other guys like Westbrook, Akine.
But he had like 10 points or 12 points, and he had like 2 catches.
Yeah, probably again same sort of concept. Rosterable, probably not startable.
I will say startable. Patriots are going to take away your top passing option though. So unfortunately, that was the top passing option.
It's rough for Tennessee. I think the Colts might end up winning that division.
We'll see.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll talk about that. Before we get out of here, man, did you watch Hawkeye?
I did. I watched both episodes.
All right. So if you guys haven't watched Hawkeye, you don't want to spoil. We're not going to get too in depth here. Probably just like general thoughts, but What did you think of Hawkeye? How are you feeling about the show?
I'm excited. You know, I think we're getting a quicker ramp up to Big Bad of the show, which there's only 6 episodes and we're already a third of the way through. But compared to like WandaVision, we're miles ahead in that scenario.
Yeah.
It was good. Action scene's good. I honestly forgot what Hawkeye went by in that Snap version of the
Mhm.
world for the longest time until like because I wasn't even paying attention to the name at that point. And then the second I like saw it on her, it's like, oh crap, that's right.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
it's intense. I'm excited to see where it goes Wednesday.
yeah.
After a very long day, I'm gonna have, and
Yeah.
it's very good. I thought it was very good. The only thing I had a problem with is the fucking Captain America play with the whole Avengers. Like
Oh, that was
like
that
9
was
years after a catastrophic event in your city. I mean, I would assume more obviously canon wise to the story on par with like 9/11 for that
oh,
universe, if not worse. I
worse.
mean, way more destruction clearly, but like at
Yeah.
least that attacker's gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As it not the case in real life, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Where so like the idea that in a universe that does in canon have like TikTok and all social media isn't getting just destroyed for that play, like
Well,
and you know like it's in New York too, so there's someone that literally we like the other main character of the show had a traumatic experience from that event. Like there's no one in that audience like having Vietnam flashbacks. Like what the
it's crazy, man. Well, and I think it was purposely like done in a very like over the
cheesy,
top way.
yeah, cheesy Broadway-ish,
I'm in a
off
few
Broadway-ish, I'd say.
yeah, I'm in a few like movie podcast Facebook groups because I'm strange. But some of the people in there were like, "Man, I can do this all day," which is the song they sing, stuck in my head. I was like, yeah, I don't even know how the tune goes because I completely tuned it out by the end, like Clint did. Uh, Strangely funny show. When
Yeah.
he goes to the medieval thing, I was cracking up. That's a little bit of a spoiler. Uh, and I think we're gonna get some old Marvel characters based on what I've
Mhm.
been reading. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
Vincent D'Onofrio is going to be Kingpin in this show. I think that's going to be
we'll see. I'd like
yeah,
a nice interpretation of that character. Um, I I don't know what the leader of the one enemy is
mhm,
technically. I didn't really look in depth. I'm not trying to look in depth for the show like we did for
that's fine.
other shows.
Yeah,
But
yeah, get too in the
obviously,
weeds.
like there's multiple possible like big bads or potential evils in the show, so we'll see where it goes. But
Yeah,
it was a good start, I think, and I thought it was a good idea, especially with the first episode, to have both come out early and just get a pure audience attention for the rest of the show.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I don't know if we'll even have time to talk about this on our next show,
Probably
but
not.
hopefully we do.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely keep Marvel talk in the cards. The other thing I wanted to say, I got my Spider-Man tickets finally. I'm going
Uh,
Saturday. I'm gonna miss a Browns game for it, so that's how I feel about the new Spider-Man movie. That's
it's going to be pretty epic. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed. There's some leaked um, tickets information that I mean guarantees stuff. So if that doesn't happen, that could be a little disappointing for a ton of people, I'm sure.
yeah.
Um, but
There's a lot of
I've
leaks, man.
I've not tried to get tickets. I I have loose plans with some friends that weekend as well as a family thing like the day after. So I really don't know when I'll be able to see it. It might be like the next week. So not that
Yeah,
first weekend, but the week after that I get to see it. So we'll see. Usually watch stuff 2 days before me. It feels like every single time.
that's true. I have a massive exam the day I'm going to see it, so uh, I
It'll
won't
be
even
your
have
it's
time
your
to
treat
like.
to yourself.
It is, yeah. Or making myself feel better if I fail the exam, so which might happen. So, all right, guys, that'll do it for this episode of The Cut. Make sure you guys subscribe on the podcast form if you're joining us live. If you're joining us on that podcast feed, make sure you drop a 4 or 5-star review. We would definitely appreciate that. Make sure you guys check out all the great podcast episodes and different shows on this network. We have the Coach Approach returning this week after a little hiatus due to the holiday. We have the College Football Cut this week, and we also have DFS Deep Dive. You can also catch us on Thursday on the podcast feed with our starts and sits and our Thursday night football preview. Randy, do you have anything to add before we bounce?
No, sir.
Alrighty. For Randy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. We will talk to you guys later this week. Peace.